There are moments that arrive quietly, without thunder or warning, and yet they divide a life into before and after. For Alina Whitmore, it began on a calm Tuesday evening when the sky outside her kitchen window turned soft shades of orange and blue, and the house felt almost too peaceful. She stood at the counter slicing tomatoes for a simple dinner. The rhythm of the knife usually relaxed her, but that night her thoughts were restless. Marcus had texted an hour earlier. "Running late? Don't wait up." It was the third time that week. She stared at the message longer than she needed. 2. The words were polite, familiar, and distant. Marcus had always been ambitious. She admired that about him when they first met. He carried confidence like a tailored suit, sharp, smooth, impressive. After her difficult divorce years ago, he had felt like stability. He listened carefully. He noticed small things. He made her feel seen. Lately, she felt like background noise. The front door creaked open softly. Lena looked up, surprised. But it wasn't Marcus. It was Ryan Dott. At 16, Ryan had grown taller than she expected. His shoulders were wider now, his voice deeper. Yet there was still something gentle in his eyes, something that reminded her he was still just a boy trying to understand the adults around him. "Hey," she said lightly, "you're home early." He shrugged and dropped his backpack by the stairs. Practice was canceled. Alina nodded and returned to the cutting board, but she could feel him standing there. He didn't head to his room. He didn't grab a snack, simply lingered. "Everything okay?" she asked without turning around. "Yeah, kind of." That made her pause. She set the knife down and wiped her hands slowly. When she turned, Ryan was still by the doorway, hands in his hoodie pocket, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. He looked nervous. "Come sit," she said gently. They moved to the small kitchen table. The sunlight streamed across the floor, casting long shadows. Alina noticed how tight his jaw looked, how he avoided eye contact. "I don't want you to be mad," he said quickly. Her heart softened. "I won't be. Just tell me what's going on." He hesitated again, like someone standing at the edge of a cold lake. Then he took a breath. "I think Dad is lying to you." The sentence was simple, calm, almost quiet, but it felt like the air had been pulled from the room. Alina blinked, unsure she heard him correctly. "What do you mean?" Ryan swallowed. "Seen his phone? Messages he doesn't know I saw." Then a slow chill spread through her chest. She forced her voice to remain steady. "Messages from who?" "There's a name that keeps popping up. L. There are hearts. And stuff like, 'I missed last night.'" His voice cracked slightly. "That doesn't sound like work." Lena's fingers tightened against the table. She wanted to dismiss it. Teenagers misunderstood things all the time. Maybe it was business. Maybe it was nothing. But Ryan kept speaking. "He goes outside to take calls. He smiles at his phone a lot. Kate deletes messages fast." Kay finally looked up at her, and his eyes were full of guilt. "I didn't know if I should tell you. It didn't feel right not telling you." Her heartbeat was loud in her ears. She remembered the last few months clearly now, as if someone had turned on a brighter light. The late meetings, the sudden gym membership, the new cologne. The way Marcus sometimes seemed distracted during conversations, nodding without truly listening. "Are you sure?" she asked softly, though she already felt the answer settling. In her bones, Ryan nodded once. "I'm sorry." The apology hurt more than the words. Alina reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "You did the right thing." But inside, something fragile was cracking. Ryan stood soon after, almost relieved to have said it. He disappeared upstairs, leaving Alina alone with the hum of the refrigerator and the heavy silence that followed. She stared at the wall for a long time. Memories began flashing through her mind, Marcus laughing as they danced in the living room. The night they moved into the house, promising her that this marriage would be different. He had said, "We'll always be honest, even when it's hard." She had believed him without question. Alina rose slowly and walked into the bedroom. The bed was neatly made. Marcus's side looked untouched. She sat down and picked up one of his shirts from the chair. Smelled like him, familiar and comforting. Her chest tightened. Was she imagining things? Had she ignored signs because she didn't want to see them? Her phone buzzed. A new message from Marcus. Dinner with clients went longer than expected. Don't wait up. Love you. She stared at the last two words. Love you. The words used to feel warm. Now they felt like paper thin and fragile. Alina walked to the bathroom and splashed cold water on her face. She looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes searched for answers. She didn't see a woman who was failing. She saw someone tired from trying too hard to keep everything smooth. She returned to the kitchen and cleaned up dinner without eating much. Every small sound in the house felt louder than usual. The ticking clock, the distant barking of a dog outside, the wind brushing against the windows. When Marcus finally came home, it was almost midnight. Alina heard his key turn in the lock. Her body went still. He walked in quietly, loosening his tie. "You're still up?" he asked, surprised. "I couldn't sleep," she replied. He leaned down and kissed her forehead, light and quick. It was a familiar gesture, safe, polite. As he stepped back, Alina caught a faint scent on him. Not his usual cologne, something softer. Floral. Her stomach dropped. "How was dinner?" she asked carefully. "Fine. Just work stuff." He avoided her eyes as he set his phone on the counter. She noticed how quickly he flipped it face down. That detail cut deeper than she expected. Marcus moved around the kitchen, grabbing a glass of water. He spoke about a new project, about numbers, and deadlines. His words flowed smoothly, but they felt rehearsed. Alina studied him quietly. She searched his face for cracks, for signs of guilt. His expression was calm, confident. But there was tension in his shoulders she hadn't noticed before. "You seem distant lately," she said gently. He looked at her then, almost defensive. "I'm just stressed. Work's intense." She nodded slowly. "That's all." "What are you trying to say?" His tone sharpened slightly. She shook her head. "Nothing. Just asking." The silence that followed felt thick. Marcus finished his water and reached for his phone again. His thumb moved quickly across the screen. A faint smile touched his lips before he caught himself and locked it. Alina felt something sink inside her. Later, as they lay in bed, Marcus turned his back to her. He fell asleep quickly, his breathing steady. Alina stared at the ceiling. Ryan's words replayed in her mind. "I think Dad is lying to you." She thought about the first time Marcus told her he loved her. It's the way he had looked at her with certainty. The warmth in his voice. Had that been real? Or had she simply wanted it to be? Her thoughts raced, but her body felt frozen. Hours passed. At some point, she turned her head and looked at Marcus in the dark. The man beside her felt like a stranger, close enough to touch, yet impossibly far away. Tears slid silently down her cheeks, but she made no sound. In that quiet darkness, Alina realized something important. It wasn't just the possibility of another woman that hurt. It was the slow shift she had ignored, the distance. The feeling of being slowly replaced without being told. Morning came too quickly. Marcus left early, kissing her cheek lightly before heading out. "Big meeting," he said. Alina watched from the window as his car disappeared down the street. The house felt empty. She moved through her day in a blur. Every corner of the home carried memories: family dinners, birthday celebrations, quiet. Sunday mornings with coffee and laughter. She wondered how something that once felt so solid could begin to crumble without noise. Her phone buzzed. Again, not from Marcus. A message from Ryan. "Are you okay?" Her chest tightened. She typed back, "I'm okay, thank you." But she wasn't. She walked into the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed again. Marcus's pillow still carried the faint scent from the night before. That unfamiliar perfume lingered in her memory. Doubt had entered her heart, and doubt, once planted, grows fast. Alina stood slowly and looked around the room, the framed wedding Photo on the dresser, the ring on her finger. The life she had built piece by piece. She understood something now that she hadn't wanted to face. Whether Marcus was fully unfaithful or just stepping toward it. Something sacred between them had already shifted, and she could no longer pretend she didn't see it, because the quiet warning had been spoken, and nothing would ever feel the same again. Alina woke the next morning feeling the weight of the night pressing on her chest. Sleep had been shallow, filled with half-formed dreams where Marcus was always somewhere else, talking to someone she couldn't see. Found. The sun spilled into the bedroom, and for a moment the light felt sharp and unforgiving. She moved quietly, careful not to wake Marcus, though he already seemed distant even in sleep. His breathing was steady, familiar, but it did nothing to comfort her, she remembered. Ryan's words from the previous evening. "I think Dad is lying to you." They echoed in her mind, persistent and impossible to ignore. At breakfast, Alina watched Marcus from across the table. He smiled at her, polite and warm, but there was a tension in his jaw, a subtle stiffness in his shoulders. It was the same look she had noticed in fleeting moments over the past few months, a look she had dismissed as fatigue or stress. Now it felt loaded with secrets. Marcus picked at his toast, glanced at his phone frequently, and laughed in ways that seemed forced, trying too hard to sound casual. Alina felt a hollow ache in her chest as she realized how far apart they had grown throughout the day. Small details kept catching her attention. She noticed his car parked differently, as if he had left quickly for some secret meeting. His phone would buzz in his pocket, and he would immediately step away to answer, lowering his voice. Text messages came and went, always quickly deleted when she approached. Alina forced herself to focus on her work to act normal, but the undercurrent of suspicion followed her like a shadow she couldn't shake. That evening, she decided to confront Marcus, but in a careful way. She wanted the truth, not a hastily crafted denial. She waited until they were alone in the living room, the soft glow of the lamp casting long shadows across the walls. Marcus sat on the couch, scrolling on his phone, seemingly absorbed, yet aware of her gaze. Elena's hands were folded tightly in her lap. Trying to steady the trembling she felt inside, "Marcus," she began, her voice quiet but steady, "I need to ask you something." He looked up, surprised by the seriousness in her tone. "Are you being honest with me?" She didn't add details. She didn't accuse. She let the question hang, heavy in the air. He shifted his expression, a mix of surprise and defensiveness. "Of course I am. What are you talking about?" Lena's heart tightened. She could see the flicker of hesitation, the subtle hesitation in his eyes. She pressed on, gently. "Are there messages you're hiding? Someone you're talking to?" Marcus's hand froze on his phone. Silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. Finally, he looked away, running a hand through his hair. "It's not like that," he said quickly. "It's nothing serious." Alina felt her chest constrict. Nothing serious. Her voice rose slightly, not with anger, but with disbelief. "Marcus, you've changed. I feel it. I see it. You've been distant, secretive, and I need to know why." He exhaled sharply and sat back, avoiding her eyes. I've been talking to someone, just texting. I didn't think it mattered. I didn't mean for it to hurt you." Those words felt like a punch to the chest. Not because he had admitted it, but because of the casualness in his tone. "It didn't matter," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Our marriage. It didn't matter." Marcus reached for her hand, but she pulled back instinctively. He had broken a trust that wasn't easily repaired. "Lena, it wasn't physical," he said, almost pleading. "I didn't cross that line." Her tears came unbidden. She tried to blink them away, but the emotion was too raw. "It's not just about physical," she said. "It's about honesty. It's about choosing me as your partner in life, and I feel invisible." He looked at her then, really looked, and she saw guilt, shame, and frustration warring in his expression. I didn't know how to tell you, he admitted. I didn't want to ruin what we have. Alina shook her head. You already have. The next few days were tense. Marcus tried to make amends in small vase flowers left on the counter. Apologies whispered in passing, attempts at conversation that felt strained. But Alina noticed everything with a clarity she hadn't had before. She watched his expressions, his gestures, the way he interacted with her. His attempts to act normal were met with her quiet scrutiny. Every smile felt rehearsed, every compliment weighed against months of subtle distance. Meanwhile, Ryan's presence remained a gentle but constant reminder of the truth. He seemed relieved after speaking to her, but cautious, aware of the delicate balance he had disrupted. He didn't bring up the incident again unless she prompted him. Sometimes he would linger nearby, quietly observing, offering small gestures of support, a kind word, a shared cup of tea, a knowing glance. His honesty had shaken the foundation of her marriage. Yet it also became a source of unexpected strength. One evening, Alina found herself alone in the living room. Marcus had stepped out for a work event, leaving her with nothing but her thoughts and the quiet hum of the house. She sank into the couch and allowed herself to remember the beginning of their marriage. The early days when love felt effortless and laughter filled every corner of the home. She realized how subtly things had shifted, how small moments of distraction and secrecy had grown into a chasm between them. The realization was painful, but it was also clarifying. Alina understood now that the betrayal wasn't only about messages or hidden conversations. It was about emotional absence, about secrets that had built walls around Marcus's heart and left hers exposed. It wasn't sudden. It had been happening. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, till Ryan's words brought it into sharp focus. As the night wore on, she reflected on her own feelings. She felt hurt, of course, but also a strange sense of empowerment. The situation forced her to see the reality she had been avoiding. She realized she could no longer ignore the cracks beneath the surface. To continue as if everything were fine would be a lie to herself. By the following morning, Elena's mind was made up. She would confront Marcus again, not with accusations, but with clarity. She would demand honesty and transparency. If he could not provide that, she would have to make choices for herself, choices that prioritized her well-being and emotional safety. When Marcus returned later that day, she waited until they were alone. She had rehearsed her words in her mind, but now, facing him, she realized rehearsals weren't necessary. The truth had been waiting for them both, quietly, until it could no longer be ignored. Marcus, she said softly, her tone calm but firm, I need the truth. All of it. No more secrets. He looked at her, and for the first time in days, Alina saw fear not of losing her love, but of being held accountable. He hesitated, his lips pressed together, his hands fidgeting. Then came the admission, slow and reluctant. There's someone I've been talking to. I didn't think it was serious. Alina felt her chest tighten. She had expected the words, and yet the moment still hit her like a wave. She looked away for a moment, staring out the window at the street below, the sky painted in muted shades. Of late afternoon, the realization settled fully in her mind. This marriage had changed. And the path forward would not be simple. For hours afterward, they sat in silence. Marcus tried to speak, to explain, to apologize, but Alina heard only fragments. She thought of Ryan's honesty, of the courage it had taken for him to speak up. That courage contrasted sharply with Marcus's avoidance and secrecy. By the end of the evening, Alina knew that the next steps would define her life. Trust had been broken. Love remained, but it was fragile, tentative, and uncertain. The coming days would demand decisions, painful ones, perhaps, but necessary. She had glimpsed the truth, and truth, once seen, could never be unseen. And so the cracks beneath the surface became undeniable. They could no longer be ignored or patched over. Lena understood that she would have to confront them fully, face the betrayal, okay, and decide whether to rebuild what had been fractured or to walk away and reclaim herself. The days ahead promised confrontation, reflection, and perhaps heartbreak, but they also offered clarity. And for Alina, clarity was the first step toward strength, toward healing, and toward understanding the boundaries between love, loyalty, and self-respect. Alina woke that morning with a strange mixture of clarity and heaviness in her chest. The night had been long, filled with restless sleep and fragmented dreams where Marcus's words collided with Ryan's warning. She felt as if a veil had been lifted. She could finally see the truth of her marriage, yet it brought a weight she hadn't anticipated. Every small sound in the house felt magnified. The distant hum of the refrigerator, the soft ticking of the clock, the muffled footsteps of the neighbors outside. The world seemed unchanged, yet for Alina, everything had shifted. She sat at the kitchen table, sunlight streaming through the window, and stared at her hands. The memories of her early days with Marcus flooded her mind, the late-night conversations, the gentle laughter in the living room, the warmth of a man who once seemed entirely devoted to her. But now, those memories were tinged with doubt and betrayal. She remembered the subtle shifts over the past months, the frequent absences, the secretive phone calls, the carefully hidden messages. Each detail replayed in her mind like a series of warning signals she had chosen to ignore until Ryan had spoken. Ryan's courage weighed on her heart in the gentlest way. He had come to her with honesty, even though he was scared. He had given her a chance to see the truth, and in that act, she found a quiet sense of support and protection she hadn't realized she needed. She thought of the times he had lingered near her, offering small gestures of kindness, a glass of water, a soft word, a knowing glance. San felt a mixture of gratitude and sorrow. He had changed everything, not by forcing the truth, but by simply speaking it. That afternoon, Marcus returned from work. Alina had prepared herself for the conversation she knew she had to have. She waited in the living room, trying to appear calm while her thoughts raced. Marcus entered, smiling lightly, as if unaware of the storm brewing beneath her composed exterior. He set his bag down and looked at her expectantly. Alina's hands rested on her lap, fingers intertwined. Her voice was steady when she spoke. "Marcus, we need to talk," she said. He tilted his head, surprised by her tone, and sank into the chair across from her. Alina met his gaze directly. "I know there's someone else," she continued, "and I need the full truth. No more secrets." Marcus hesitated, running his hand through his hair, avoiding her eyes. His lips pressed together, his body stiff. Finally, he admitted, "Yes, I've been talking to someone. But I didn't think it mattered. I didn't want to hurt you." Alina felt a wave of emotion crash over her, sharp and undeniable. "It didn't matter," she asked softly, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her pain. "Our marriage? It didn't matter." "I didn't know how to tell you," he said quickly, almost pleading. "I didn't want to ruin what we have." She shook her head. "You already have?" she whispered. Tears pooled in her eyes. "It's not just about messages or attention. It's about honesty, about loyalty, and I feel invisible." Marcus leaned forward, trying to reach for her, but she pulled back instinctively. His attempts at physical reassurance no longer carried the weight they once had. His apologies felt insufficient because the damage had already been done. Alina realized that emotional betrayal often cut deeper than physical indiscretions. Secrets, dishonesty, emotional absence could corrode a marriage more quietly, but far more thoroughly than anything else. Over the next few days, Marcus attempted to make amends. He brought flowers, offered compliments, planned small dinners, and tried to engage her in conversations that were once natural and easy. But Alina noticed everything with newfound clarity. She observed his gestures, his expressions, the way he interacted with her. Each smile, each word, each touch was measured, rehearsed, and careful. She could feel the distance between them growing again, a subtle reminder of the emotional rift that no apology could fully close. Alina spent hours reflecting on herself as well. She realized that for too long she had prioritized the appearance of harmony over her own emotional well-being. She had tolerated absences, half-truths, and distance in the name of love. But now she understood that self-respect and dignity were just as crucial as love. She could no longer ignore the reality she had avoided. She had to choose not only how to confront Marcus, but how to reclaim herself. One afternoon, Ryan found her sitting on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the street below. His presence was quiet but comforting. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I didn't mean to make things harder." Alina reached for his hand, holding it gently. "You didn't make it harder. You helped me see the truth. You respected me when I needed it most." She smiled faintly, and in that moment she felt a spark of reassurance. Sometimes honest even when painful was a gift. Marcus continued to apologize, pleading for understanding, promising that the other relationship was meaningless. He assured her that he had not crossed certain lines, that he still loved her, that they could fix things. Yet Alina could see clearly that apologies alone could not rebuild the trust that had been fractured. The foundation of their marriage had shifted, and she had to decide whether to stay in a house built on uncertainty or step into a life where she could be whole again. The decision weighed heavily on her, yet each day brought clarity. She no longer feared leaving Marcus, not because she did not love him, but because she had begun to value herself. She realized that staying out of obligation or fear of loneliness would not be love. True love required honesty, respect, and loyalty. Without these, even the strongest bonds could crumble. Finally, one quiet morning, she made her choice. She called Marcus into the living room. His expression was curious, tinged with hope, as if he expected reconciliation. Elena's heart pounded, but her voice was calm and firm. "I need space," she said gently. "I want a separation." Marcus's face fell. "I said I was sorry. I can fix this," he said, desperation in his voice. "I know," Alina replied softly, "but sorry is not enough. I need peace. I need to be with someone who chooses me without hesitation, someone whose honesty is unwavering. I need to reclaim myself." The conversation was difficult, heavy with emotion, but it was also freeing. Marcus argued, pleaded, and tried to convince her to stay. Yet Alina felt a quiet strength she hadn't known in months. She realized that love could not exist in a space filled with lies and doubt. She had to take control of her life, even if it meant leaving behind the man she once trusted completely. The days that followed were challenging. Alina packed her belongings, sorted through memories both beautiful and painful, and prepared to leave the home she had shared with Marcus. Ryan helped when he could, offering quiet support without judgment. He understood that some truths were hard, but necessary. Elena's emotions oscillated between sorrow, relief, and determination. She grieved the loss of what could have been, yet celebrated the courage it took to leave a life that no longer nurtured her heart, once she moved into her new apartment. The solitude initially felt daunting, yet gradually it became restorative. She found moments of peace in the quiet mornings, the soft sunlight streaming through the windows, and the gentle hum of the city outside. She allowed herself to laugh again, to feel joy in small things, a favorite song, a warm cup of tea, a call from a friend. Each day, she grew more confident in her decision, more certain that reclaiming her life was the right choice. Over time, Alina began to reconnect with herself. She pursued interests she had put aside, reestablished friendships, and nurtured her emotional and mental well-being. The experience with Marcus had been painful, but it had also taught her the value of honesty, self-respect, and personal boundaries. She realized that love without trust was incomplete, and that courage sometimes meant walking away from someone who no longer honored the bond you shared. Her relationship with Ryan also evolved. It was no longer just the bond between a stepmother and stepson. It became a quiet friendship built on trust, respect, and mutual understanding. He had helped her confront the truth, and she had grown because of it. Their connection became a gentle reminder that honesty could build bridges even in the aftermath of heartbreak. One evening, Alina stood on the balcony of her new apartment, watching the sun sink behind the skyline. The sky was painted with hues of pink and gold, a subtle reminder that endings often carry the promise of new beginnings. She felt a sense of calm she hadn't experienced in months. There was sadness, of course, for the loss of what she had hoped her marriage would be, but it was accompanied by a quiet hopefulness. She understood now that walking away had not been a failure, had been an act of self-respect, an assertion of her worth, and a declaration that she would not settle for anything less than honesty and love that was unwavering as night fell. She reflected on the journey that had brought her here, the warning from Ryan, the confrontation with Marcus, the nights of doubt and tears, and the courage it had taken to choose herself. She realized that life could be beautiful again, even after betrayal, even after heartbreak. She could build a life filled with trust, clarity, and emotional intimacy that honored her. And most importantly, she could do it on her own terms. Alina closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath, feeling the cool night air on her face. She felt stronger, wiser, and more aware of her own worth. The love she had lost was not meaningless. It had taught her lessons she would carry forever.